Thank God it's Friday, and thank God it's the Week 9 fantasy football slate coming at you. We say cheers to it all with our start, sits, and sleepers on today's program. So kick back, enjoy, and let the good vibes in.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, check your stat line, see who's up, that over under hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. So I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way. And it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you. What they don't know, something they haven't seen. I find a gap on the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it.
Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I'm off that mean Joe Green, it got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is November 3rd, 2023, and we have made it to the month of the Pilgrims and the month of fantasy football quitters everywhere. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, one of the realest and maybe one of the shittiest programs on the entire internet right now. I am Seth Woolcock. I am tired. I am wired, but I am joined by my great co-host today, a man who fucks with tall beers, short running backs, and big paydays, baby. That's Eric Romoff, a.k.a. Tex, a.k.a. Summertime Eric. Eric, how we doing, pal?
Man, 3 for 3 on the intro. I am here for all three of those things, getting me hyped up for this game. We got to see another weird down-to-the-wire finish for your lures. We'll talk about that later, but Week 9's here, man. I couldn't be more excited about it.
I agree. We are in the thick of the fantasy football season right now, and we're at the time of the year where I got to stop just like saying yes to stuff. I just got to say, no, I'm not doing it. Social obligations, don't contact me, because tomorrow I got a baby shower, got to drive like 2 hours for that. Whoa. And then Sunday morning, got to wake up. I'm going out to my alma mater for a young alumni award dinner banquet on Sunday. I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking committing to this stuff? Because the weekend's here now. No, I'm not being honored. I just sit there and I'm one of the table hosts. So no awards for the kid quite yet. But like, what was I thinking, man? You know, like now I gotta go across the state twice this week, and fantasy football is ripping. NASCAR's coming to a close, and there's not enough time in the day for everything.
Yeah, there's really not, and this is an affliction that I also carry. Right? Yeah. I take like the improv approach where someone brings me something and I'm like, yes, and it leads to a pretty big workload, pretty full calendar by the time we get to the middle point of the season. But honestly, like I wouldn't have it any other way, right? This is the fun part of it.
It absolutely is, and we are jam-packed on the program today as well. Thursday Night Football recap coming at you in a minute. And then start sits with our guy JL Garofalo from FYF. Excited to sit down with him at 2:15 for some start sits. And then Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week. I've been getting absolutely ripped in Sure Thing Sleepers the last 2 weeks. Been getting burned. Got 9.7 from Cam Akers last week, needed 10. And the week before, Desmond Ridder was a locked and loaded quarterback one if he doesn't fumble the ball in the end zone once himself and one straight run. So we're going to straighten that out today on the show, get back on the right side of things. I just want to say thank you to everyone in the chat, everyone who's a part of this IBT family with us. As we mentioned, NASCAR season kind of wrapping down, but we're still ripping full send with the fantasy football and PGA content, and of course, all the lifestyle stuff. Easiest way to support us here, subscribe to the channel, like this video if you enjoy this type of content, and check out our site, man. We have a lot of articles and columns coming for you every single week. Looks like we got Albert back in the chat ready to go today. What's up, Albert? Good afternoon to you, man. And let's just go ahead and jump into it here, Eric, and talk about my lures and another comeback for him here on Thursday Night Football, week number 9.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between.
How about you come to the place?
Just trying to have some fun.
Ain't gotta worry so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
Yeah, baby, the Lurs, they come out with it 20-16 over the Titans. And I got to be honest, man, it didn't look great for the Lurs in the get-go. Kenny Pickett, kind of a rough day for him, 19 for 30 for 160. Will Levis looked pretty good in his second start, all things considered, 22 for 39, 252, and one interception for Levis on the day. And kind of a back-and-forth fun affair, I thought here, Eric, heading into the weekend. Only one turnover, but 17 penalties. So kind of a back and forth mixture of a bag we got here just on the other side of Halloween.
Man, shout out Mike Tomlin. Got these guys out there not blinking.
Yeah.
Look, I know you're a Lurs fan, but realistically, like top to bottom, all 53, these Steelers rosters over the last few years, this year included, are not the best. Like they are league average, probably below league average at best. And Coach Tomlin's got these boys out there playing. And look, like this game that your Steelers managed to eke out there at the end, like this is the type of game that they win, right? You look at their wins and they're usually pretty gross. There's typically some turnovers. There's usually some heroics on the defensive or special team side that ultimately, win the day for them. And look, Coach Tomlin and your boys are not scared about, squeaking out a close one, right?
Certainly.
So now all of a sudden they're right in the mix in terms of the playoff picture, which feels weird to say. But is kind of a bumpy road in terms of getting there.
Yeah, 100%. I think they always kind of show up at the end of these games, and they are not that talented top to bottom. But when you have high-end players like Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cameron Hayward, and of course TJ Watt on this defense, like I think you're always in the mix to do something great, and that's what we saw here on Thursday night. I want to chat about Will Levis before we get to the weekend starters, and this is a guy, man. Like I love the poise in the pocket from Will Levis, but he still looked like a rookie at times. He missed D-Hop twice by kind of dropping his eyes, trying to take the check down to Spears and Henry rather than taking that deep shot. That's going to happen with a young guy here. It has played a decent amount of college ball, but we can't forget only 2 years at Kentucky. Before that, he didn't see much time out here in Happy Valley either for the Nittany Lions there. So there are some growth spurts and some bumps in the road to come for Will Levis here, Eric. But I think all things point to at least him being the starter, hopefully the rest of the way. He's looked at least more comparable than Ryan Tannehill this season.
I mean, that's not exactly a high bar, right? Like Ryan Tannehill
no, not at all.
Kind of been over the hill, and a little indecisive late on his ball delivery, right? So like all of this is to say, like I think it's time, if not well past time, that Ryan Tannehill be moved on from in terms of this offense. And yeah, to your point, like Will Levis has shown us at least enough to where I think we should and will see him announced as the starter for the rest of the season here shortly, right? Obviously, he didn't come out and have the same prolific game that he did
Certainly
in his
not.
debut. But I mean, look, your Lurs defense, like that's no slouch, right? He saw pressure in last night's game that he certainly didn't in the week prior, and he did enough. I mean, he had his interception that's come with rookie quarterbacks, when they're in their early starts. But I feel like he handled the pressure well. He was able to get the ball out on time. He made some throws from an arm talent standpoint that Ryan Tannehill and to a lesser extent Malik Willis certainly cannot. Right. So there's a lot to work with here, right? Like it's going to have its ups and its downs, but I think the offense as a whole is more effective with Will Levis under center, and we'll see how he develops down the stretch run of the season.
100%. I just want to crack open the weekend starters, and I'm still looking for a name for these guys. These are like the shower beers of the weekend. It's like they kind of get you going. They're the pregame to it all. You had fun if you played them, and you're happy going into the weekend. Deontay Johnson, 7 for 90 and 1. Been great to see him back on the field. It's kind of come to George Pickens' demise a little bit, which has been a bummer. And then the backs, they got going here in Pittsburgh. Jaylen Warren, 11 for 88, 3 for 25 through the air. He looked explosive. Absolutely trucked a motherfucker. I don't know if you saw that, Eric, but that was like one of my favorite things of the entire season, seeing that from Jaylen Warren. And then Najee, kind of had himself a little bit of a game as well, 16 for 69, got bailed out by the touchdown. How do you feel about the Steelers running backs moving forward? Because they're not hot commodities. We're not trading for them. No one wants to trade for them if you have them now. But like, I feel like they're, plug and play, low end RB2s rest of the way.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, right? Like, these are guys that are going to be kind of on flex radar week in and week out. I will dissent towards your other point, which is I have traded for a ton of Najee Harris because he is free. I've
Dirt
literally
cheap, yeah.
thrown in as an afterthought in other deals that I've been working. And look, like for however ineffective or inefficient he might be, for however more explosive and somehow able to truck opposing linebackers despite his stature, Jalen
Yeah.
Moore like Najee Harris is going to be on the field, right? 40, 45, 55% of the time. So, a guy that's got that kind of role that can still catch out of the backfield will get some goal line opportunities as we saw last night. Like he's going to hold some value. So, these are guys that both should absolutely continue to be rostered, but it might be hard to do now that he found the end zone last night.
Yep.
If you can go out and get Najee Harris for pennies on the dollar, like do it. It's hard to find running backs that are going to get a dozen or so touches a week, even if they're inefficient like Najee Harris is.
And in a Matt Canada offense for sure. I'll leave you with this question, Eric. Rest of season, DeAndre Hopkins 4 for 60 in this one, or George Pickens didn't get his feet in bounds. We usually see this guy make pretty acrobatic touchdowns. He didn't quite get this one down. 2 receptions, -1 yard for him. Who do you want rest of season?
Of the two, I'll go with Hopkins.
Nuke.
Look, I mean the thing, the knock against him up until last week was he's going to get all the volume, but it's going to be inefficient and near the line of scrimmage and not delivered on time. And a lot of those concerns are alleviated with Ryan Tannehill not under center, right? So, the volume will certainly bounce back. We've probably seen his best game of the year with the hat trick. I think that's fair to say. But if nothing else, like he is option 1, 2, and 3 in the pecking order here in Tennessee. And with Will Levis under center, we know that he's going to have more downfield opportunity than we saw through the early parts of the season. So I'll go with Nuke here, right? Obviously, Pickens now has to contend with Deontay Johnson eating into his target volume, which is it's going to make him hard to trust. He's gonna boom and bust.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's good to see double-digit targets for Nuke once again here. Seeing some people filter in here. Go ahead and drop your questions for us. We'll go ahead and get to those in just a second. All right, though, Eric, I think that about does it for the Thursday Night Football recap. Let's help the people out today in matchup management.
Who you got?
Matchup management.
Who's it gonna be?
Who's it going to be? We tell you in matchup management, and we are joined by a very special guest. This guy has a huge fucking brain. One of my favorite human beings in the business, the founder of Front Yard Fantasy, the CTO of BDGE. That's a lot of letters for a great man. He's the big dog, JL Garofalo. What's up, JL?
That was quite an intro, Seth. I loved it. What's up, boys? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, man. How are the vibes heading into week number 9 of the fantasy football season?
The vibes are great. I feel like everybody else starting to lose their steam. I'm just gaining steam.
There we go. Hopefully you're like
kind of guy.
Hopefully like the Clemson Tigers here.
Don't you dare bring them up right now, Seth. Don't you dare.
This is the week, right? This is the bounce back spot. Am I right?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine, Seth. I don't know what they're doing.
I appreciate you being here with us either way, JL. How's the season been for you guys up at BGGE and over at FYF?
The season has been fantastic. Yeah, FYF, both of them, we are chugging along.
All right. Yeah, I feel you, man. We're kind of in the part of the season. I don't think we get much sleep. Eric and I were kind of running on empty today, but we always get up and get out here for the IBT family. So we got Jay in the chat. What's up, Jay? Good to see you today, man. Saying question, boxers or briefs. I don't think I've ever wore boxers in my life. I'm going to be honest. Maybe that's TMI. I've always been a briefs guy. JL, are you a boxers guy or are you a briefs guy?
I am a boxers guy. There was a point in college where I went on a little brief stint.
Okay.
Because I was, I guess, feeling myself. Can't really tell you exactly why, but no, it just wasn't as comfortable.
Okay, I always felt like boxers just like with jeans always just got too much action going on, too much fabric down there. Eric,
Whoa.
where do you stand on this highly debatable question from Jay?
Man, I don't even get to break the tie because the correct answer is the hybrid. It's the boxer brief, right?
Beefs.
You get the best of both worlds.
That is true. That maybe I'm a
Oh,
boxer briefs guy. I guess I don't know the difference between boxer briefs and,
I was
and
just about to.
briefs.
I was just about to say I was picturing boxer briefs the whole time that we were talking.
Yeah, if
I assumed that both you guys were out there rocking like Ninja Turtle
The
underoos like
whitey
you were 4
tighties.
years old.
Yeah.
nonetheless, JL, let's talk about this.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. In that scenario, then Eric, you were just sitting there imagining that I had a brief whitey tighty stint during college.
Yeah, I was like, that's a weird turn to take in college. Like
That makes
usually
sense.
people
That makes sense.
usually people play that hand by the time they're like 5, 6 years old. But
No, I
some
got to
people
wait.
find it later in
Late,
life. I'm not
late
mad at you.
bloomer. Yeah.
So do whitey tighties those count as briefs? Is that what we're saying
Those are.
here?
I think those are like OG
That is the
briefs.
definition of a brief. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, I don't wear briefs, folks. Sorry, don't want to put that energy out there. Boxer
Like a
briefs for
dry,
me.
sweet speedo.
I was on a swim team for a minute, so I did rock a
There you go.
speedo here or
Whoa.
there. Jay saying the correct answer is none. Trick
Heyo.
question. We appreciate you being here, Jay.
Power move.
Let's talk about this week 9 slate here, JL, because not only do we have a shit ton of teams on bye, but we also have just all these injuries impacting fantasy teams. I want to start up in New England. Demario Douglas, kind of the hot name of the week. Where does he fall for you this week? In a week, we don't have Kendrick Bourne out for the season with the ACL. No DeVante Parker. How are we feeling about the day 3 rookie for the New England Patriots?
Normally, I'd be like, all right, we have a flex wide receiver talent at best here in New England, and I would be staying far away. But the more I dig into this situation in New England, I think there's a ton of short-term opportunity for Mario Douglas in this offense because they're passing a ton, and the matchup is really good for him this week, going against Washington, which has given up, I think, the second most points to quarterbacks and wide receivers. So I'm actually kind of interested in Demario Douglas this week. The Patriots always have a weird game plan. They're going to come in like you don't expect, especially when they're down on personnel. But I think he's a fine flex play this week.
Eric, are you willing to roll out Douglas here? And I'm with JL. It's always a bit sketchy to know what the Patriots are going to do, but they should be able to attack Washington, who no Montez Sweat now and no Chase Young after ditching them at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the Commanders were offering much resistance on the defensive side as it was, and then they ship off easily their 2 best players, right? So definitely a good matchup. Where I'll disagree, at least with your sentiment, is with the concept of not knowing what the Patriots are going to do. Now that old butt chin Billy O'Brien is back up there, we know exactly what they're going to do, and that's throw the ball. Mac Jones is number 13 in pass attempts this season, and by hook or by crook, Demario Douglas is kind of the last man standing, right? So we've seen his role in this offense continue to expand over the last 2 weeks. Season/career highs in snap share, 61% in week 7, 79% in week 8. He's seeing those targets that typically come along with that. So yeah, there are a number of injuries or a number of bye weeks that people are navigating. So Douglas is as fine a replacement as you're likely going to get out there.
Glad to hear that, because I dropped a shit ton of fab on him this week. I just kind of needed a spot start in a couple of places, so hopefully Douglas fills in there for us. Looks like we got Didi in the chat. What's up, Didi? Thanks so much for making time for us on your Feel Good Friday. I want to move down to your boys in the South, Eric, the Houston Texans. Devin Singletary likely to garner the start with no Dameon Pierce. I still think it's gross. I don't think I want any part of it. Can you... The guy who backed Dameon Pierce like a fucking wolf this summer, man. Like you were the leader of that pack. And can you get behind Singletary in a spot start?
I can. Yeah. What's not mentioned in that lead in is not only was I the leader of the Dameon Pierce pack, but I was also very quick to turn tail and run as we saw Devin Singletary start to get more involved in this offense, right? So my argument for Pierce at the time was to do with volume. And now that it looks like Dameon Pierce is very much so in doubt for this week, that volume shifts over to Devin Singletary, who has looked like the more effective runner, at least in this system, right? Like the way that he runs, it fits into this zone blocking scheme a little bit more naturally than what Pierce does, and he should get his opportunity this week, right? The Tampa Bay defense is still tough against the run. They're not like all timers like they'd had been in recent memory, but that volume is going to account for something. And I think we see Devin Singletary, really make the most of this opportunity. So he's not a huge priority, right? I'm not moving him into like my top 15 at the position or anything like that. But if we're talking about a guy that you need to fill in for a bye week replacement, if you are the Dameon Pierce owner, very much so, he is a great way to bridge that gap.
Is there juice here, JL? Do you think there's juice here? Because I'm just skeptic after I was all in on Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary last week to smash against the Carolina Panthers. We didn't see it. Do we see it here against Tampa Bay, allowing just about 3.9 yards per carry this season?
Yeah, I think Eric laid out all the nuance of this decision perfectly here. I view him very similarly to Demario Douglas in that he has an opportunity this week. The usage for Singletary has gone up. In the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen around 40% of the carries go to Singletary. Without Dameon Pierce there, I can assume it's likely to go up. And then the part that really, I think, adds to it here that Eric didn't mention is how I think this game is going to go, which is I think Tampa and the Texans are going to have to battle this game out. I think it's going to be tough for one of them to get a lead. And I think they're going to have to rely on the run. And so I think Singletary is going to get opportunities in this game. So I'd be willing to start him. I'm just a little less bullish than I am on the upside when you compare it to a player like Demario Douglas.
Okay, I like it, man. Here we got a question from Ricky, AA in the chat. Scary Terry versus New England, Jacoby Myers versus the Giants with the backup quarterback, Tyler Lockett versus your Baltimore Ravens, JL, and then Hollywood Brown against Cleveland. You got to sit one. Who is it?
Jacoby Myers, sit him.
Is it just Aiden O'Connell? You're not trusting the backup quarterback for him?
It's not just the backup quarterback situation. It's the coaching staff is gone.
Yeah,
they had to replace them. Jacoby Myers could come out and look fantastic, but there are so many new variables all at once going from 1 week to another. It's hard for me to sit there and be like, all right, Jacoby Myers is he's gonna give you what he's been giving you in the past when everything has changed.
Yeah, man, that's tough, Eric. We haven't really gotten to talk about Josh McDaniels kind of leaving this program out there. How do you feel about Jacoby this week? Is he your sit here and rest of season? What's the outlook?
Yeah, I mean, rest of season is going to be kind of hard to say, right? Like the Raiders took the most elementary approach to this possible. There's everything that we're doing isn't working, so let's do the opposite. Everyone's gone. Whatever we were doing before, just try the opposite. So there's a couple things at play. Jacoby Myers, his involvement in this offense was one of the things that's working, right? So if we do the whole opposite side of the coin thing, maybe we see that start to trend back towards his median projection a bit. But specifically in the context of this decision for this week, I actually think I'm going to sit down Hollywood Brown. He is also very likely looking at a rookie quarterback in Clayton Tune starting. Well, at least we don't have definitive word out of Arizona yet. And he's facing off against a Cleveland team that has been putting the clamps on receivers this year. So, for me, it's more of a matchup consideration. I do wholly agree that we're probably looking at more of the dumpster fire circumstance with the Raiders, but at least that dumpster fire is going against a good matchup in the Giants secondary. So I'll sit Hollywood of this lot.
Wow, this one is so tough. A lot of the times I go to just what is the overall point total in this and maybe try to pick the game with a higher point total. I mean, they're almost dead even. It's 37 and 38. They're both not very appealing games. From a betting perspective, though, JL, is there any value in betting the Raiders this week? They are, I mean, they're favorites. They're favorites against the Giants coming in at home. But how many times have we seen Jeff Saturday last year took over the Colts? They went out and just hung one on a couple teams right away. Sometimes this motivates the locker room. Are you buying that narrative here as a 1.5 favorites right now?
I think the other aspect of that, or the reason that sometimes happens, is that these teams have all this data that they're making decisions from. And when you suddenly switch up what that data is based off of, in this case, who's making the decisions on the team and who's on the team, then you all of a sudden these defenses have to adjust what they thought. This offense is really good at this because they have this coach or these players. They have to now adjust to suddenly there's a new person making decisions, and I need to try and anticipate this new person's decisions in order to do my job well. And so there's absolutely a chance that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also a chance that the Giants defense shows up and shuts down this Raiders offense, because they've looked good at times. They looked really good at times. So maybe this is one of those games where they do show up.
I'm going to say, just to kind of round out Ricky's question here, I'm going to go with JL. I'm going to sit Jacoby Myers. Sure. I know we don't know a lot about Clayton Tune and what he could do down there in Arizona, but he's at least the number 1 for Clayton Tune, Hollywood is, rather than the number 2 for Aiden O'Connell. So I think that's where I go with that question. But a great one, and good luck to you this weekend, Ricky. Here's Tingley in the chat. Start Flowers or Lockett. So I'm going to go back to you, JL. Same game. Who are you feeling here? The Seahawks offense has not really gotten going so far this season. Tyler Lockett, though, had a really nice week 8.
Yeah, Lockett, he's one of the more consistent fantasy wide receivers. And so what I expect from him, it's going to be that middle range, that wide receiver 2 area. I got to lean Zay Flowers here, though, because he has shown us all season so far is that he's got that upside. This week going up against Seattle, I think the Ravens have no trouble putting points on the board. So, I'll go Zay Flowers.
Okay. How do you feel, Eric? Because I don't know if I'm as optimistic about the matchup with Seattle, just because this is a secondary kind of starting to get into form. Breek Woolen's getting healthy. Devon Witherspoon, I mean, this guy is an absolute stud. I think we knew that coming out of Illinois, but to see him play these different positions for that Seattle secondary, is that scary at all?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Seattle secondary has improved, but they've improved from a point where they were largely a turnstile to where they're now somewhat competitive, right? Like they're still 8th in the league in fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. And Zay Flowers has been a revelation in this Baltimore offense, right? Like 28% target share, just completely getting a ton of volume, but also way up there in terms of yards after catch, in terms of missed tackle rate, right? So like he's getting the volume that you want to see with your floor, but when that ball gets into his hands, he can do a lot with it and, bring a fair amount of upside too. So I'm going Zay Flowers of the 2, but candidly, these guys are 5 spots apart on my ranking. So it's a pretty close call.
All right. It's a sweep for me as well. Here's Derek with one. Adam Thielen, DeAndre Swift for James Cook and Puka Nacua, making a little trade here on a Friday. Always a good time to get a trade done on a Friday heading in the weekend, JL. But can you do this? Because I feel like Thielen and Swift are both guys I don't know if you're ever going to get fair value of, just because of the perceived negative connotations that come with these players. Are you getting fair value here, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Puka Nacua and James Cook. Well, this feels like the type of trade that you make when your league mate is really attached to those names, right? They know Thielen, they know Swift, but Puka Nacua had just a absurd start to his rookie season here. James Cook's been decent as well. Thielen, I think he's going to be consistent in that offense. He's certainly the number 1, but I think that offense is going to change as the season goes on, and I think teams are going to be able to most likely just shut down Thielen towards the end of the season there. So I'm happily making this trade. I think this is an upgrade.
Fresh legs. He's saying no old fuckers for me, JL. Eric, I don't want to say you're an old fucker, but I think you're a little older than me. Man. Maybe a year. I think you're a little older than JL as well. So are you leaning with are you leaning with the grizzled vet here in Thielen, or are you taking the young bucks as well?
I think I'm actually going with the grizzled vet side, right?
Wow, old head.
We olds, we got to stick together. Look, for me, it's a bit more about safety and their projected floor, right? Like, yes, Thielen is going to get more and more attention from opposing defenses, but I mean, it's not like he broke out last week, right? Like teams have been trying to find a way to neutralize him for the better part of this season, and both he and Swift have a cleaner projection towards volume, right? So like in any given week, there are going to be plenty of times where I would look to start Nakua or Cook over either of these two guys. But if we talk about the remaining, 10 or so weeks of the season, these are going to be guys that are going to have a much safer midpoint. And that's usually the direction I lean whenever I'm considering these trades.
I wish I could give better analysis, but I think you guys laid it out very well. And this is one, like, I almost think you have to pick, like, what players do you want to root for more here? Because, in my opinion, Puka is the best player in this trade. You are downgrading a little bit to Thielen, I think, but the upgrade is present with Swift over James Cook. So it's really a head turner there. It's really a head scratcher as well, Derek. So hopefully we were able to lay a little bit of the case out. JL, any final thoughts on this one as we kind of close the door for Derek?
Yeah, so the point Eric made there is really good. And I think the way that I actually make decisions in my trades is take that point, which he said, which is like, those guys are more likely to give you that middle density of options, of ranges. And if that is if that's going to make your team better, that strategy, go that route, because I will make that decision if it makes sense for my team and my roster construction. And knowing the difference between looking at these trades in just a vacuum versus applying them in your league is really what separates a great from just the good fantasy players.
Yeah, great point, man. Every league has some different nuances going on there. Looks like we got the FIF channel in the chat. This show should be called 3 Great Sweaters. I haven't worn this shirt, I'm going to be honest, in like a year and a half. I didn't like the fit of it a couple of years ago. I've lost some weight since then. So, like, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling confident today. So I don't know who's behind the FIF channel over here, but thank you for making my day.
Could be anyone. Could be anyone.
Is it you, JL? Are you doing it right now?
It's not me. My hands are right here.
Looks like they're saying, oops, this totally wasn't Joey logged into the company account. 100% Simon.
Okay. I'll have a talking with Simon later.
We appreciate
Simon
you,
knows
Simon.
his sweaters.
Yes, he does. We got Ricky saying Jamal Williams, Roshan Johnson, or Miles Sanders. Half PPR, boys. Pick one. Wow. This is we had some great options in that first question there, Ricky. We're really at the bottom of the barrel here. How do you stomach this one, Eric? Because I don't think I want to put any of these guys in my lineup. It's kind of a hold your nose and plug and play.
Yeah, I don't want to pick one of these. I'm assuming that you have to, and that's why you asked the question. For me, if I'm in that situation,
I was just thinking.
It's totally hypothetical here. Look, of this lot, I'll lean Roshan Johnson. I mean, these are guys that are like ranked outside of flex territory, so you're really hoping that like one of them falls into the end zone. But of this three, we're talking about his first game back last week in week 8, but Roshan Johnson came back and he saw about 40% of snaps. He saw about 20% of the rush share, and he ran a fair number of routes. And I think that's really the key here, right? Like, I think Chicago is probably going to be trailing a bit in this game against the Saints. And so him out there running routes, him with his 11% target share last week, there's at least a path to some kind of cheap garbage time PPR scoring with Roshan. So that's where I'll lean.
I knew you're a Roshan stan through and through, my friend. You went to the well, back to the well once again with him. JL, how does it shake out for you here?
I'm with Eric. I would lean Roshan here. And I love the point you brought up about the targets, because I do think against the Saints, Chicago's going to have to keep up. And maybe they just start doing it. Maybe they see how good Alvin Kamara's doing, and they're like, we could do that too.
Oh yeah,
watch this. I think they'll have to lean on Roshan Johnson. And when I look at these other options, I don't feel the same way. I don't feel like Carolina's going to have to lean on Miles Sanders to beat the Colts. They're going to have to win through the air. That's how the Colts are likely going to win. And Jamal Williams is the same thing.
Yeah. We're hearing from Ricky in the chat. Do you guys have details for Foreman versus Roshan this past week? Listen, man, this is kind of a three-headed committee at the time being. Darrington Evans even getting a little bit of a run here. Former decently, I think, a day 2 draft pick for the Tennessee Titans. He's wound up on this team and had a couple good days in a row. Eric, I know you follow, I think, this backfield a little bit closer than I do. You're always pumping up one of these guys. Do you have any additional analysis for Ricky here on what the split might be like until Khalil Herbert's back?
Yeah, last week was an absolute mess, right? Like my analysis heading into the week was Roschon Johnson just slots into the Darrington Evans role, who saw about 50% of snaps the week prior. And it was anything but. It was literally third in terms of snap share. Foreman and Roschon Johnson did see more rushing opportunity than Darrington Evans did, but Evans was right there neck and neck with Johnson in terms of his involvement in the pass game, right? So like this is the quintessential fantasy backfield quagmire that we generally try to avoid, right? I think we'll probably see Roschon come on a little bit more this week, but by the time we have enough of a sample to see that trend establish, here comes Khalil Herbert to just throw it all on its head, right?
Yeah, 100%. JL, I want to get you out of here, man. I know you have a show coming up here just at 3 p.m. over on the Front Yard Fantasy channel. Didn't get to say it to you earlier, man, but congratulations on the wedding. Good to see you finally sealed the deal, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that, my friend.
How was it? Did we have Creed playing at the wedding? What was the wedding like?
Yeah, what else would we have playing? It was excellent. It was an amazing event. It's just really the best part was just seeing everybody.
Hell yeah, man. Well, congrats to you and Maria over there. Thank you for joining us, man. Guys, keep the questions coming. We'll answer some more of those in Sure Thing Sleepers around the corner. But JL, first tell us how we can best support you, FYF, BDGE, and everything else you have going on this season.
Yes, come check us out, Front Yard Fantasy on YouTube.
Okay. 3 p.m., guys. As soon as this show's over, jump over with them. They'll get your Friday started in a good way over there. So, JL, thank you, man. We'll catch you soon. Have a great weekend, my friend.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
It's the Sure Thing. Sleepers of the Week.
All right, Eric, we are in Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week. First, let's crank out a couple more of these questions in the chat real quick for our friends. Tingley, rapid fire. I just need one word answer for you coming back here. Start Stroud or Howe, Puka or Metcalf, Godwin or McLaurin. Wow, some great questions too.
Sheesh. I guess that was my one word was sheesh. I'll start Metcalf and I will start Terry McLaurin.
What about Stroud or Howe?
Oh, the third question. Give me Howell here. That pass volume is crazy.
And you took Metcalf, is that correct? Or Puka?
I did. Howell, Metcalf, and McLaurin.
I'm going Howell, I'm going Metcalf, and I'm going McLaurin as well. All I'll say, man, is we're gonna see Washington throw the ball a lot. So I want part of that with Sam Howell, Terry McLaurin. So I'm comfortable with that. Metcalf over Puka, I think that's a little bit of a hot take, but I'm with you there, man. Like Metcalf continues to see some of the most air yards in the league right now, dude. Like a big game is coming for DK Metcalf. Like hold on to him if you're rostering him right now. Don't go out and trade him or go try to trade for him. Guy had 4 end zone targets last week, double-digit targets as well. So I like that call, Eric. That's hopefully that one doesn't come back to burn us, but. Man, if you're trying to get Puka and Metcalf in your lineup, you must have a stacked team, Tingley. All right, and here's one from Alex. Trade Garrett Wilson and Najee Harris for Amari Cooper and Kirk. I'm guessing that's Christian Kirk. I don't know if I'm doing this, Eric. How do you feel?
I mean, this is really one of those roster decisions, right? You're definitely you're getting more variance in your team if you're getting the Wilson and Najee side, right? But the upside is very real. The thing that I would look to is just how the roster is constructed, right? Like if you're deep at running back and you need to get some more options, more bodies in your wide receiver core, this makes sense on the Amari side. If you need that depth piece at running back, obviously we talked earlier about how Najee can fill in there in a pinch, right? So in a vacuum, I think this is a pretty equitable deal overall. It just kind of boils down to where you are with your roster.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think Garrett Wilson's my favorite player in this trade coming back or going away. So I don't love that. But Kirk and Cooper both really solid wide receiver 2s rest away, especially if we can get Deshaun Watson back there in Cleveland. Here's one from our guy Diamond Trucking, Diamond Boy Trucking LLC. What a name. All right. I like that. Pierce out. How do y'all feel about Singletary? We actually touched on this earlier in the show, so you can go back and watch it if you want the full take on this. I'm still hesitant on Singletary, honestly. this is a really good Buccaneers run defense. Don't give up a lot of yards per carry. Don't give up a lot of scores to the position. There's a chance Singletary falls into the end zone and he can get you 10 PPR points. He hasn't gotten there yet this season. Dameon Pierce has only scored double digits twice. So I'm a bit more hesitant. I know, Eric, you like him a little bit more just because of the sheer volume, it sounds like.
Yeah, strictly a volume play, right? Like it's not going to be the prettiest day in the office for Singletary, but he fits this blocking scheme a little bit more organically, and he's going to see all of the work, right? So I've got him in more of the the high end of the flex territory this week.
Here's one from our pal Joey Wright. What's up, Joey? Thanks for making time for us on your Feel Good Friday. What does the trust meter say on Kyler Murray if he starts in a tough comeback matchup against the Browns? Yeah, I haven't even thought that Kyler Murray was gonna be playing this week, to be honest. I don't know how you feel about it, Eric. But overall, I don't love Kyler as soon as he gets back.
Yeah, I mean, hard to trust since that's the meter that we're using. But in a bind with all of the quarterbacks that went out over the course of the last week or two, like he's definitely in the player pool. And if nothing else, even if it looks ugly, I expect him to do enough with his feet to where he can contribute that that solid rushing floor. But I mean, this is about as tough of a spot as it can get in terms of being plunged right back into NFL action against this Browns defense, right? So, if you were relying on Kirk Cousins, if you were relying on Matt Stafford, you're certainly going to be better off with Kyler Murray than either of their replacements. But it could be a little ugly in this first one.
If you had to say right now, you think Kyler's in or out?
I think he is out.
Okay. Joey said, can you please put up the trust meter graphic? I was told there would be a trust meter graphic. I actually think we need a trust meter graphic. I think that's something we're going to put on the bucket list there, Joey. So appreciate the ask there. We'll make sure we get that. Actually, we might have Kyle in the back end working on that. So hang around for about another 10, 15 minutes. We might have that for you, Joey.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live there. Here's one from Brad. What's up, guys? Do I trade Mahomes, Monty, and Gabe Davis for Burrow, Hall, and A-Chain? That's talk about a fucking tester, man. That's like, I think the best player in this trade, I will say, is Hall coming back. Mahomes is second for me, but then I do want A-Chan so bad, man. I want him on my team for this stretch in the playoffs. However, Monty's also could be that guy in the play. This is very even. How do you feel, Eric?
Run, don't walk, and press the button if you're getting the Burrow, Hall, and A-Chan side. Look, like even in a super flex context, right? Like the difference between Mahomes and Burrow is somewhat negligible, just given how deep the position is in general. Gabe Davis has, he's been in a boom recently, but that downswing is going to come. He's just not this consistent of a player. Obviously, Monty has done very well, but I do think as we projected throughout the season, Gibbs will take more and more of the work and played well enough to earn that in Monty's absence. Whereas on the other side, again, kind of looking at it as a push, a minimal downgrade at the quarterback. But then you're getting Hall and Achane, two guys that in any given week can lead their position in scoring. And you simply don't have that with Monty and with Gabe Davis. So I'll go the Burrow side by a pretty good margin.
I think you talked me into it, man, because I think you're right. Raheem Mostert's trajectory going down a little bit, less competition for Achane possibly, and then on the other side of it, Gibbs is going up. So I think that's the difference for me. Great question, though, Brad. Go smash that one over there. Ricky, question of the year, if it wasn't already boxers and briefs earlier in the show, Will Fuller or Le'Veon Bell? I miss Le'Veon Bell a little bit. We had some fun times out here in Pittsburgh, man. I miss that guy. Last one before we get to some sleepers here, Eric. Would you trade Moss and Sutton for Higgins in PPR? Other RBs, Kamara, Hall, Javonte, Achane, Kyron, and Hendo. So he doesn't need him. He doesn't need Zach Moss, who is running back 4 on the season, though. How do you feel about it, Eric? Because I feel like name-wise, we're getting the best player in T. Higgins, but is he still the best player in this trade?
I think he's still the best player in this trade, right? He's kind of in that weird like Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle category where like they're extremely talented, they're on prolific offenses, but they're also clearly, the second fiddle to an elite talent. But with that being the case, like I expect to see some positive regression in Higgins' regard. And while Moss is number 4 on the season, I do think we will continually see Jonathan Taylor get more and more work in that backfield. So you're selling high on an asset in Moss that I don't think is going to retain a whole lot of value for the rest of the season. And in that case, you're just kind of looking at Sutton versus Higgins, and I would go Higgins on that pretty much every day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, you got 5 bona fide starters here, man. Like you got 5 great starters here, Chaka, in that running back room. So I'm not worried about giving up on Zach Moss, despite how good he has been this season. But great question either way. Yeah, but I'm with Eric here. I'm taking T. Higgins. And Eric, let's get into the sure thing sleepers of the week. Like I said earlier on the show, man, I'm getting bent lately here. 9.7 from Akers last week, just below what our mark is at double-digit PPR points. And the week before, I need a top 15 performance from our guy Desmond Ridder. He was in the end zone, dropped the ball. Drake London was in the end zone, dropped the ball. So I'm ready to get back here. I'm ready to win it this season. We're pretty tight in the standings. Who do you have for us as we head into week number 9?
So I'm going to go to what should be one of the higher scoring games on the slate, and that is the matchup between Buffalo and Cincinnati. And I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir here. A player that very much so showed what he can do in that Island game last week, 6 for 6 for 92 yards. But more specifically, we obviously saw Dalton Kincaid explode in that first game without Dawson Knox on the field, but categorically it also changes this offense, right? Like Buffalo is no longer running 12 personnel nearly as much as they were. Khalil Shakir is the primary beneficiary. He saw a season high in snap share last week. He was out there for about 2/3 of snaps. So if they're going to be running these 3 receiver sets and he's going to be getting looks from Josh Allen, that is absolutely the makings of another boom week here. So like him to get over the 10-point mark.
Okay. I'm with you there, man. I talked about him earlier as kind of a sneaky stash after waivers ran guy. You could pretty much pick him up in free agency, and I think he has a nice little flex appeal here this week. So I'm with you there. I'm going to go to Brandin Cooks for mine. And no matter what way you want to shake it out, if you're looking season long, if you're looking monthly, if you're looking last 2 weeks, the Eagles secondary has been trash against wide receivers. I know they made some moves to try to shore that up. I don't think that takes effect here this week. Because they're just leaking points to the wide receiver position, Eric. The best matchup on all those fronts, and allowing 1.5 TDs per game, 191 yards to the position per game. And Brandin Cooks, we're not quite getting the targets we want, only 8 over the last 2 weeks. However, he's turned that into wide receiver 20 and wide receiver 29. To my chagrin, the Cowboys are getting better. The Cowboys are figuring it out a little bit. And I think in a game where CeeDee Lamb is going to be covered as much as he is, like that to me has to be the focal point for the Philadelphia secondary. Throw a couple guys on CeeDee Lamb, and I think it's going to open up things for Brandin Cooks to exploit the other half of the secondary. So fire me up some Brandin Cooks. He came through for me last week in a couple leagues, hoping he can do the same.
Yeah, look, he's going to be out there, and we obviously saw the upside of this offense last week, right? So, it'll be fringy, but with as many teams on byes, with navigating injuries as always, I think you can make a case for it, right? He should be widely available. So if you're in a pinch, I forget which question it was, but we were talking about guys that were like in the hundreds on the rankings, right? Like Brandin Cooks might be a more stable option to go slot in over some of those grosser decisions we talked about.
Yep, 100%. Last question, and we're getting out of here for the weekend. Appreciate everyone tuning in, hanging out with us on this Feel Good Friday. Start Gus Edwards, Tyler Lockett, or Michael Thomas in the flex. I think it's Gus Edwards for me. I really think I might be trusting Gus Edwards at this point. Like we talked about Tyler Lockett and how he has some flex appeal here this week, Eric, but this is a really, really good Baltimore defense. One of the best I've seen in a long time, just with how balanced they are throughout this roster. Gus Edwards against Seattle, you can do a lot worse, man. He's kind of he's kind of the guy now. So I tried fading him a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to do it this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, right? Obviously, you're not going to see another 3 touchdown game out of Gus Edwards this week. But
Hmm.
if you look at the way that Baltimore is utilizing him, right? 19 carries last week, 14 the week before, 16, 12, 15, 11, 10, right? Even go back to week 1 when we still had J.K. Dobbins out there, he saw 8 carries, right? So like that type of volume is hard to come by. And specifically, he's getting a ton of touches in the red zone, right? So that scoring opportunity is going to be there, as evidenced by last week. He'll always have the ability to, pop a couple into the box and really make your week. And if nothing else, his median projection is much cleaner as well.
Okay. Do you know if Leonard Williams is playing? I think that might impact my ranking a little bit of Gus Edwards if he is ready to go for the Seattle Seahawks here, but I wouldn't expect him to be maybe in his first outing, or at least maybe see some limited snaps.
I haven't seen reporting, but I don't know if it would change my decision in a material way, right?
Okay. And then Tingley just asking as we get out of here, who are some of your low end wide receiver ones? So I think this is more for rest of season is probably what he's looking for. Maybe some possible trade targets to go out. Low end wide receiver ones. I think at this point, Calvin, no, Puka. I would say Puka's a good wide receiver one, low end. Justin Jefferson's kind of in that low end wide receiver one tier to me. CD Lamb's right around there. Those are some wide receiver ones I would be targeting here. Anyone else you would kind of throw in this mix? Because I would almost say Keenan Allen, but I think he's in the higher end of that.
Yeah, Keenan Allen's a little too high. All of those those category of wide receiver, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, right? These are guys that certainly have that upside and haven't quite played up to that level yet.
Mm-hmm.
Devontae Adams, nowhere to go but up, and he's actually performed a bit better than public sentiment might indicate. So he's a good buy low candidate that if the Raiders just get even moderately going in the right direction, it can mean big things for Devontae Adams down the stretch.
Yeah, I love it, man. Let's go ahead and get out of here then, Eric. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much, IBT family, for being with us. If you guys enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. And head over to the website, inbetweenmedia.com. We have so much good content for you on the fantasy football front, NASCAR, PGA, DFS, and betting, and of course, some lifestyle and entertainment content for your needs as well. Eric, you got college basketball starting up on Monday. How can we best support you and your endeavors over there?
Yeah, you can check us out at Green Screens Media on YouTube.
Green Screens.
We just cleared the 600 subscriber threshold. We've been grinding away at CBB all off season. So geared up. We're in mid-season form already. I can't believe that the season's tipping off in like 3 days. It's wild.
Yes, if you guys want to know everything about college basketball and why you should be betting the Penn State Nittany Lions to win the national championship in the future, go over to Green Screens Media. Check Eric out. There we go. We'll talk to you guys soon. Enjoy the weekend. Be safe out there and have fun. We'll talk to you soon. Until then, keep it in between.